My new book, Facts That Aren't True, is out now. Don't forget about my other book, Rational Answers to Stupid Questions.
And I think that there is great empirical evidence for God.
Empirical evidence?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, like what?
Yeah. Empirical evidence. So, like, I have reason to believe that the New Testament is a historically reliable document, and in which describes a man who was executed by the state, proven dead by various wonderful, authentic ways of knowing that the human being was dead, and then that same person was alive again.
Well, I agree that he got executed. And people try to I don't understand why people try to do this. They say, "Oh, well, when his side got pierced, it says that blood and water flowed out of him." That's a pleural effusion. Ancient people couldn't have possibly known about pleural effusions, blah, blah, blah. Like, there aren't that many people, us atheists, there really aren't that many of us that don't think he ever existed or that he wasn't crucified or anything like that. So,
Sure.
they use, I guess they're trying to use that as a historical example that validates what the text is saying. But I never denied those parts of it. The idea that he got up later and was walking around, and that the tombs of all the saints opened, and 500 of them walked, or no, I don't remember if there's a number for that, but they walked around and talked to people. That's where my bullshit meter goes off hardcore.
Okay, right. So, the New Testament is a reliable historical document, and the New Testament describes Jesus Jesus of Nazareth was dead and was raised from the dead.
That's what the book says, but there were I don't remember which Roman emperor it was, but only a few days after he died, there are accounts of people saying that they saw him. And I mean, we have actual physical empirical evidence that is contemporary to prove that those emperors exist. We don't have anything like that for Jesus. Again, I don't deny that Jesus existed, but there isn't a single piece of anything from the time he was alive that can be connected to him, or for any character in the New Testament really at all. So, I mean, but nobody thinks that that one of these Roman emperors resurrected, you know? And my skepticism of that is the same skepticism, the skepticism you have of that is the same skepticism I have for your claim, and the fact that there are things which may be historical facts or which pose no problem. Like, the Golgotha, maybe we find where Golgotha actually was. We know that Pontius Pilate existed because there are Roman records of him. Okay, that doesn't prove that Jesus rose from the dead in any way.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say to your Roman emperor who was seen after, who were those people? Were those his closest friends?
I don't know. Again, I don't know who they are. I'm just aware that this is a historical. Well, no, you can think I'm making this up, that I have not heard the Myth Vision podcast and Justin talk about this, but no, this is.
So my claim is that these were his best friends, who for 3 years ate, slept, drank, walked around, saw Jesus, they had shook hands with Jesus, bro hugged, dapped, did the Seder Passover meal with him, broke bread and ate with this guy, had inside jokes, probably farted a bunch and laughed at it. Okay, like these are the dudes who went on tour for 3 years with Jesus of Nazareth. The guys who knew him the best and knew him the closest. Who then cowered at his death and then had a 180 for, again, at the risk to their health and well-being. Started saying, no, Jesus is alive again, man. Jesus, he's alive. And not just a spiritual religious nicety. Like, no. He physically, it's the same. It is him. Yeah, and he's alive. And so like went to the, so like nobody, I don't know who, I've never heard of, but I'm open. I've never heard of what you just said about like the Emperor of Rome who was seen dead, and then a bunch of people, some random people. I don't know. Who are those people who saw him alive? Like, I'd like more information on that. And like, yeah, I mean, I have healthy skepticism. But it's like, but I'm open. So who are they? Who are the people? Are these the people who are next to him? His closest friends who traveled with him, who dapped him, who ate around the same table as him, who like farted.
People are saying that it was like in the chat. People are spamming Nero. When I typed this into Google, I'm trying not to read it because I can't read stuff and pay attention at the same time. But they're claiming it was Nero, and that's actually really interesting because why would people? Nobody liked Nero, so I could just make the argument. Well, why would the most hated person would people claim that he was resurrected and was walking around, etc.? But I don't really want to compare them. I'm really just interested in talking about this claim here with the Bible, because what I could point to is, the Heaven's Gate cult. They firmly believed that there was a starship hiding. It was like hiding behind Jupiter, and it was going to arrive here when Halley's Comet got here or something like that. They took their lives. They died for something that they believed, but that doesn't make it true. The other awkward thing about the gospel story is we have absolutely no idea who wrote those stories, if it was them or not.
The people who wrote the New Testament, right? So I mean, like,
most of that's written by Paul, but he just says that people told him that happened. For example, okay, I don't know what kind of brain fart I was having there, but
here we go. And then after his list of witnesses, then he said, and then finally Christ appeared to me, the chief of sinners. Paul says in his letters that the risen Christ had appeared to him, and Paul
he doesn't actually say that. He says he saw a great light. When he was walking to Damascus, it literally just says that he saw it's like a bright flash of light or something. How would he know what Jesus looks like? Yeah, I mean that's a good. I mean, he could just say to him, "I am Jesus," or whatever.
Paul says in his letters in the New Testament, in that list of witnesses, and then Christ appeared to such and yada yada yada, and then he says, and then Christ appeared to me as one. Again, fuck. Okay, and I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah.
I closed it up a bit. I'm trying to look it up in the Bible, and then Christ appeared to me last, as if one born like late in time, chief of sinners. But Paul says that Christ appeared to him. And then what you're referring to about like Road to Damascus, that wasn't written by Paul. Acts was written by Luke, and Luke's testimony of what happened to Paul, probably told to Luke by the other disciples and by the people who were alive at that time, recounting to Luke, when Paul was on the road to Damascus, he saw a bright light, knocked him off his horse, and then Paul said, "Who are you?" Yeah, he didn't know what Jesus looked like, but Paul was like, "Hey, what's going on? Who are you?" And then the voice said, "I am Jesus, who you persecute." Okay, so yeah, the evidence for God. The New Testament is a very reliable historical document, and in that document there are plethora of miracles done by Jesus.
Well, that's what it
And
says, yeah. But now we have to
yes,
ask: are those claims historical or not?
yes, yeah, yeah, and it is my understanding that the New Testament is a reliable historical document. Yes.
That, I mean, again, does the Bible talk about places and things that really existed? Yes. Like if I wrote a story about George Washington, and it's a just straight up, it's got all the facts right. The crossing of the whichever river that was. Why the hell can't I? The Potomac? No, that's where he lived. What the hell
Valley
river
Forge.
are they crossing in that painting? Man, I can't. I
Yeah,
can't
the
remember.
Delaware, the Delaware.
Oh, I wanted to say Delaware, but I was telling myself that that's not right. But that's why I should never doubt myself. So I get all these things right. The horrible winter at Fort Ticonderoga, I think it was called, and then I say, oh, and like this one time George Washington pointed his finger at a lady and she exploded. I was like, whatever. Like the historical facts don't make this ridiculous claim any more believable. And that's because the historicity of the Bible with regard to those things it can not only be cross-referenced with what other people said, but it can be, I don't know how I want to say this properly in English, it can be gone and found. You know, you can go and get it if you want to. But, you know, turning water into wine at a wedding, dividing the fish, resurrecting, whatever. Like, all these things, like, they leave absolutely no evidence behind whatsoever, except for stories. And I don't believe anybody's miraculous stories, and you don't believe any other religion's miraculous stories. And despite what people, I mean, we have the written affidavits of people that said the angel Moroni appeared to them. We have their actual handwriting for that, and they never recanted that belief. But I don't believe it because that's not good enough for me to believe. And the gospel's existing isn't good enough for me to believe miracles either.
Let me go back to your example of like George Washington, and then he pointed a finger, and then she blew up. A great historical thing until it was a very out of the ordinary event. I would just say like, well, who are you? What, like, why are you writing this document? Like, were you there? Did you see this? And I don't know how old you are, but you look like you're probably in your 30s. And I would say George Washington was alive hundreds of years ago, so I would find that extremely difficult to believe that you were there to see that. So are you writing this as...
the Gospels were written down decades after Jesus died,
But
we don't even
they
have any
were-
of those Gospels. We don't have any complete ones until a couple hundred years after he died. So it would actually be kind of the same.
No. The
What do you mean by no?
No, I mean, like, so for example, the Gospel of John surely was written by John, like best friend of. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Why-
the vast majority of people that study this don't think that the Gospels were written by his actual apostles.
No. Well,
Some do, most don't.
Full disagree. So, I did. I studied. I have studied this.
It actually doesn't matter because we don't know what John wrote down because we don't have John's writing. We have no idea how faithful the Gospels that we have today are to the original Gospels because we don't have the original Gospels.
No, so I mean, like the earliest and I've spoken to you about this before. The earliest manuscripts that we have are not the original documents that John had written on the papyrus, but we have only a few years, only a few very
That's not
short
true.
years.
The earliest piece of gospel writing is called P152, and it's from around the year 130 to 140, but it contains only like 30 words on it, is all. The oldest complete gospels are a few hundred years after Jesus died. P52, not P152. Oh, my bad.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So that still is much more reliable than you being alive in 2025 writing about, George Washington, who had lived in
No,
the
I live closer to the time of George Washington than the earliest complete gospels are to the time of Jesus. Or by about 100 years.
you're saying that the oldest manuscript that we have of the Gospel of John is how many years before the life of Jesus?
The oldest complete ones are a few hundred years after Jesus. I don't remember which one's the oldest, if it's Vaticanus, the Alexandria one, or Sinaiticus or whatever. I don't remember, but they're hundreds of they are 3rd and 4th century. That's what I do remember.
And these were copies
Yeah.
of letters and oral traditions that had been passed down by a culture that is not like ours and not like the game telephone.
Yes, it is.
Oh, my friend, no. I cringe down to my toes whenever I hear people like who have your position who say like, "Have you ever heard the game telephone?"
What do you mean, you people?
Yeah, you.
As Robert
gross-
Downey Jr. said, what do you mean, you people?
Yeah, you nasty atheist, you disgusting putrid of society. No, just kidding. No. The people, I grow exhaustively eyes rolling around in my head when I hear like it's like the game of telephone, whereas the game of telephone is meant to be funny. It's meant to be shared amongst people who are kind of like, that's kind of the point of the game, is that the message gets messed up. That's why it's funny. That's why it's
people aren't trying to mess up.
Right, but they're whispering it into each other's ears, and it's not like a well-established known thing in the village. Jewish culture is like, we're all the oral traditions of our ancestors. We are passing it down generation to generation,
Paul,
and we got to do it accurately, like in a group out loud. And they're like, no,
Except we know that they failed to do this because the Masoretic text, for example, says that Goliath was about 10 feet tall, but the older manuscripts, like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint, say that he was 3 feet shorter than that. So we know that they fuck stuff up all the time, whether on purpose or on accident.
I need to somehow stay in the app, but also try to. You say Masoretic? Say it one more time. Masoretic.
The Masoretic text, which is like 6th, 7th, 8th century, something like that. It's the Hebrew Bible, essentially. It's the Old Testament. It says that Goliath was 6 cubits in a span tall, which is about 10 feet tall. But our older copies, like what we find in the Dead Sea Scrolls and in the Septuagint, the Greek Old Testament, which is what the writers of the Gospels would have referenced for a lot of things, it says that Goliath is only, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 cubits in a span, but it makes him effectively about 6 foot 7 inches tall. So these people that said it was really important that we preserve the details, we know for a fact, I mean, I'm just some dipshit. That's the only example I know, but there's no way that that's the only example. We know that doesn't happen.
Well, I'm glad you are willing to admit the dipshittedness.
Mm-hmm.
No, just friendly fire. Just kidding. So, well, then, okay. So that means that like the Dead Sea, the Qumran caves, the Dead Sea Scroll was a profound discovery that helped legitimize the quality transfer through the ages of the message of the Bible.
Sort of, but but there's nothing
fine.
in the New Testament in any of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
I do realize. I mean, I was talking about New Testament. I think you are the one who brought up Goliath. So I was following.
I brought that up because you brought up the Jewish tradition of that it's not like the game of telephone that they have to preserve things, but we know that that's not the case.
That's right. Well, it's fair.
And
fair.
Also, like we know with the manuscripts, they get more different the farther back you go. They've been standardized for a really long time. The Bibles you read today are very, 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 very similar to the Bibles from 100 years ago and 200 and 300 and 400 and 500 years ago. But when we get to those earliest copies of the Gospels and we compare them to partial fragments of pieces of the New Testament that are older than that, the farther back we go, the more different they get. So we really don't know to what degree the original message that the Gospels, for example, wrote out, or Paul's letters, we don't know to what degree those have been bastardized. And in many cases, we actually have examples where it has been changed, where we can see additions made by people.
Mm-hmm. All right. I know the chat's going to roast me alive for saying this. They're going to think I'm a quitter, but it is coming up on 3:00, and I actually do have to get back to work because I'm still working on Saturday. So,
well, we've been talking for almost an hour.